Do we have questions there?
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Shaheen. First of all, I would like to get your clarification or perhaps a more detailed discussion in the issue of hedging. As you have said earlier, hedging is important in managing risk, but we know that there are many shades of hedging, and some are more speculative than others. And as you have said earlier, maisir or high speculation is unacceptable in Islam. So perhaps by giving some examples in the real scenario, what are considered as high speculative activities and low speculative activities in the context of hedging instruments, and what are acceptable and what are not from Islamic point of view. Secondly, in terms of arbitraging, as you have said earlier, some arbitrage activities are not acceptable. You mentioned about buying and selling in a very short period of time. You said about 2 hours. And you also mentioned that arbitrage activities may contribute to convergence of between markets, where these arbitraging activities can converge markets into its equilibrium. So in the context where we have a dual system, Islamic and non-Islamic working in parallel, if the Islamic arbitrage is not possible, those non-Islamic arbitrages can go into the market and set the discrepancies, set it back into equilibrium. But what happens if we have a full-fledged Islamic system where this kind of arbitraging activities are not allowed? What happens if there is this equilibrium between markets? So how this equilibrium can be converged? Thank you very much.
I appreciate the two good questions. Yes. Should I answer the question, or should I wait for other questions and then answer all of them at once?
Can I just continue for Durham University as well? I have a question.
Sure,
then
go ahead.
We can proceed. Thank you, Dr. Shaheen. Just also a rejoinder from my colleague here on the arbitraging issues. We have read that from the injunctions that that you cannot trade gold for gold, wheat for wheat, barley for barley, and so on. But the way I view arbitraging is that it does not increase any economic activities at all. So how does that actually being allowed in the Islamic financial transactions? And secondly, I do hope you can explain a little bit on the exchange-traded funds. Are there any Islamic exchange-traded funds available out there? Thank you. Any more?
Dr. Shaheen, I guess we can have
any more
questions first and then proceed to other centers.
Okay. My memory is getting old. That's why I can't keep in mind all the questions. So I have written them down. If I am not going to, if I miss something, please remind me so I can answer the questions properly. On the first question, in terms of giving you examples of high and low hedging kind of instruments, remember the definition of hedging is more or less kind of protecting yourself. It's a form of kind of insurance of the value of your asset. Hedging by itself, as I said, is perfectly acceptable in Islam. You try to find means and ways to hedge the value of your asset. There are different techniques, different means available, and that by itself is a whole world by itself, which different experts can talk about. And as I said, if you need, I could send you some email on this, but to just make the answer short, hedging itself is okay. Hedging instruments, there are very diverse. To hedge yourself, you can create a structure where, as we say in the management world, as an internal hedge. To give you an example, if you are a bank and you are accepting, you're providing Islamic ijara contracts to different parties in, let's say, euros. Obviously, you are accepting euro credit risk on your balance sheet, on the asset side. Now, how can you hedge yourself Islamically in this kind of a structure? You have created foreign currency risk in terms of euro in your balance sheet as an Islamic bank. The hedging principles that you could implement, for example, will be to accept euro deposits also in Islamic forms and contracts, like profit loss sharing contracts in euros. And that by itself will hedge your asset side risk in terms of the currency risk that you have created with the liability side risk. And you have created an internal hedging structure which more or less is perfectly viable according to Islamic principles, as long as your asset instruments are Islamically acceptable, and also your deposits are based on Islamic principles. So the first and most simple and ideal structure will be internal hedges. And if you can't internally hedge yourself, or you do hedge yourself and you still have some residual risk that you need to hedge yourself in an Islamic context, what you have to do is to look for different types of derivative-based Islamically viable contracts and bring those contracts into your balance sheet through various types of al-khiyar contracts, bay urbun contracts, salam or salaf contracts to somehow manage those risks. And you might, obviously in the Islamic world we do not have enough and diversified Islamic hedging instruments available, but there are some that you could use, and you do your best. You might end up having certain residual risk left over, which because of lack of instruments or contracts that are Islamically they're Islamically viable and they're not available, you just have to accept that residual risk. Just the way it works right now. That's why creation of new Islamically accepted products and instruments or asset classes to be able to allow different institutions to manage their risk and hedge themselves is important. In terms of high and low hedging instruments, I really couldn't understand that question. In terms of arbitraging, I can answer you, but may I ask the person that asked the question if I was able to answer the first question?
Meaning of high-end hedging.
I mean, when you want to hedge your position, for example, you
Yes.
have a certain outlook. When you want to hedge your
Yes.
position, you have a certain outlook on how market will be going, and normally the counterparty that you are trying to hedge your position with will have a different view of what from your outlook on the way that the market will go. So if I want to hedge currency, for example, I have the outlook that the currency may be going up, therefore I need to hedge my position. On the other hand, the counterparty that I'm dealing with, who want to take the position, would have the opposite view of the way that the currency will be going. So there will be two sides of the same coin. I will be perfectly fine because I want to hedge myself from my real business activities. But the counterparty, they want to engage in such activities due to certain speculation of the opposite nature. So what is your opinion on that?
Well, what's wrong with that? I mean, every single trade that's done everywhere in the world is either based on different views about the future that causes the trade, or liquidity needs that you have. I have a need for, let's say, have cash, and I will go in the market and sell my asset. I don't care, I just need the cash. But let's say I have an asset which could be like a commodity, gold, or for that matter, oil. And I think the price of oil will go up, and I might just decide I would like to buy more oil. And you, on the other hand, probably think the price of oil goes down. That's why you sell. There's nothing wrong with this different view. And as a matter of fact, these different views are what cause trades to happen. If you don't have different views or different outlook about the future, nobody would trade. So I will basically be concerned about my own views about the future, and I will get to hedge myself accordingly. I don't see why that becomes an important issue from your point of view. Are you saying that two sides of the party shouldn't have different views? I would say they have to have different views for a trade to happen. There are different needs for different sides of the contract that need to be satisfied. These needs are definitely different. They can't be the same. If they're exactly the same, no trade will happen. So each side, based on their need, decides how to protect themselves. I think oil will go up, therefore I buy more oil. But I would like to hedge myself against possibility of a wrong view that I have. I like to protect myself or hedge myself, so I'll try to do a counter trade to be able to see if oil goes down, I don't lose as much. But my guess is that oil will go up. I've done my analysis, I've done my homework. And as far as the second question you have in terms of arbitrage, you see, arbitrage, as long as, let me give you a simple example in terms of what kind of arbitrage seems to be accepted in the Islamic modes of financing. If you're finding an arbitrage for a particular asset in one market, where you have found this arbitrage due to an analysis or some real good homework that you have done, that's acceptable according to Islam. In other words, if you gain some profit from that, and that gaining of profit helps price equilibrium, you are basically getting rewarded for your analysis and your knowledge. That's acceptable. But a lot of times, highly speculative trades that get more or less get involved in speculation, in arbitrage activities, their nature is such that, because I've been a trader myself for almost 8 years at Goldman Sachs, first in the State Bank in Los Angeles. I've done trades, and I know how trading works. The speculative, highly speculative nature of trades are really not based on analysis. There is this grand analysis done, but they're basically moving on a wave that gets created. And that sort of wave movement could be price bubbles that are being created. That sort of a trade is what we're referring to as highly speculative forms of trade that should not be used in arbitrage activities. A lot of traders do use arbitrage technique, meaning buying and selling quickly, not based on analysis, but more or less based on a kind of a wave that gets created and some sort of a herd mentality, as they say. That is not the kind of trade or speculative activity that Islam allows. That's what I'm referring to. And that, you might say, creates price equilibrium. I haven't seen any analysis, any economic report or paper that basically says highly speculative nature of trading provides price equilibrium. I don't believe that's the case. That basically creates price anomalies, and you can see the current financial turmoil that we see in the world that is more or less being controlled. Most regulatory authorities in US and Europe are touching on this point, that they're more or less trying to create regulatory structures where they hamper or create an economic structure where highly speculative trades are become extremely expensive, so that they don't have that in their economic structure. That is what Islam says is not allowed. That's what I referred to when I said highly speculative nature means maisir, because it has this gambling structure attached to it. Gambling is like 50-50 game. It could go up, it could go down, you don't know. Because everybody else is buying, I'll buy. I don't do any analysis. The moment you do analysis, and based on analysis, you determine to buy or sell, and do arbitrage trading, meaning you buy in one market and sell it later on, several days later or months later, but it's based on analysis, some concrete work that you have done. That's perfectly okay.